speaking, and we'll see if we can also put out those images that were used during the DGMO briefing earlier today, where point by point, they are telling you of the Pak targets, remember, that have been hit, and you see before and after. You will notice the difference. No matter what the Western media might want to tell you, no matter what Pakistan might want to tell you, but that is a reality, that Pak has been hit hard. And Pak came begging for the ceasefire. Pak came begging for talks. But the Prime Minister has said talks and terror not going hand in hand. Talks and trade also will not happen unless you do not root out terror. And he also says that blood and water will not flow together. Let's first up get you highlights of what the Prime Minister has said in just a few minutes before I open this up with a panel of guests, and we then decipher what is the road ahead. Will Pakistan ever get the message? And what is this new Modi doctrine that the world now should be aware of?
पाकिस्तान की तरफ से जब ये कहा गया कि उसकी ओर से आगे कोई आतंकी गतिविधि और सैन्य दुस्साहस नहीं दिखाया जाएगा, तो भारत ने भी उस पर विचार किया। और मैं फिर दोहरा रहा हूं, हमने पाकिस्तान के आतंकी और सैन्य ठिकानों पर अपनी जवाबी कार्रवाई को अभी सिर्फ स्थगित किया है। आने वाले दिनों में हम पाकिस्तान के हर कदम को इस कसौटी पर मापेंगे कि वो क्या रवैया अपनाता है। ऑपरेशन सिंदूर के दौरान दुनिया ने पाकिस्तान का वो घिनौना सच फिर देखा है, जब मारे गए आतंकियों को विदाई देने पाकिस्तानी सेना के बड़े बड़े अफसर उमड़ पड़े। स्टेट स्पॉन्सर्ड टेररिज्म का ये बहुत बड़ा सबूत है। हम भारत और अपने नागरिकों को किसी भी खतरे से बचाने के लिए लगातार निर्णायक कदम उठाते रहेंगे। साथियों, युद्ध के मैदान पर हमने हर बार पाकिस्तान को धूल चटाई है, और इस बार ऑपरेशन सिंदूर ने नया आयाम जोड़ा है। हमने रेगिस्तानों और पहाड़ों में अपनी क्षमता का शानदार प्रदर्शन किया, और साथ ही न्यू एज वॉरफेयर में भी अपनी श्रेष्ठता सिद्ध की।
And Prime Minister has also in fact said that the ceasefire is just a pause. It is not an end. We are watching Pakistan. We are watching every action, every nefarious design of Pakistan, and the moment we believe we need to intervene, we will go all out. So the Prime Minister making it very clear, I'm just putting out the talk points again before we get in our panel of guests, that talks only on PoK and terror. That is the Prime Minister turning the tables on all those who still believe that Kashmir is an issue, because for India, Kashmir is not an issue anymore. And he also does say that nuclear blackmail will not be tolerated. Let's say good evening to Major General SVP Singh, who's a former ADG Artillery, joining us. Brahmachalani is a strategic affairs expert on the show. It's also a pleasure to have Vice Admiral Anil Kumar Chawla, who's a defense expert on the show. I do see Amitabh Tiwari, a political analyst. And we are also waiting for Veena Sikri, a noted former diplomat, to join us in just a moment. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. It's a big day. We've seen a lot of action, a lot of your important conversations here also on NDTV. And today, I think it is the next chapter of India's moment and India's new normal. Brahmachalani, I want to begin by first of telling us your thoughts on what you've heard from the Prime Minister and this new Modi doctrine.
Well, it was a stirring speech, and it actually underlines the shift, both in India's strategic posture towards Pakistan, the paradigm shift, and also a pronounced shift in Modi's own thinking and policy toward Pakistan. We should not forget that Modi landed in Lahore unannounced as a peacemaker in December 2015. So in one decade, from landing in Lahore to launching Operation Sindoor, Modi has become completely transformed in terms of his approach toward Pakistan. As far as the nuclear factor is concerned, I think we should not forget that even with the Balakot airstrike or the 2016 surgical strikes, India punctured the myth that Pakistan could employ nuclear blackmail to deter Indian retribution. But I think with Operation Sindoor, we have crossed yet another psychological and tactical threshold. India has redrawn the boundaries of escalation, reinforcing that proxy warfare will no longer go unanswered. And I think India has demonstrated that credible military responses are possible below the nuclear threshold. And this challenges long-held assumptions about the risks of direct military confrontation between two nuclear-armed states. By executing a calibrated and precise operation, India has effectively pierced the perceived immunity conferred by Pakistan's nuclear deterrent. This umbrella has been used by Pakistan to sponsor cross-border terrorism with relative impunity. So in that sense, I think Operation Sindoor will go down in history as marking a new chapter in India's approach toward Pakistan. Now, the Prime Minister says that this is not a ceasefire, but a pause. But ceasefire is a pause. A ceasefire by definition is a temporary cessation of hostilities. So the fact is that once you cease military operations, it's very difficult to revive them quickly. But I think what he is saying metaphorically is that India is putting Pakistan to the test.
Yes.
And it will be watching Pakistan's steps very closely. And if Pakistan were to return to its previous behavior, then Pakistan can expect retribution from India.
Yes, I think those are important points, sir, that you've just outlined. I also do see Veena Sikri on our screens now. Ma'am, good evening and thank you for your time. And I quickly want to get in Major General SVP Singh before I get in our other guests also. Sir, what is your sense of what, possibly the impact of what the Prime Minister today has said? It's not just on Pakistan. I think it is world over. To a lot of people who believe that Kashmir is still an issue that is on the table. Because we say we are ready for conversations, but on PoK and on terror.
The Prime Minister's speech, I would like to repeat and echo what Dr. Chalani said. It was a masterful speech. Each word measured, each word a message, and a message that India has arrived at the global stage. India is the leader in South Asia, and India will lead from the front through its strategic autonomy and strategic dominance in South Asia as of now. Pakistan must pick up the threads once again from the Prime Minister's speech. They failed to do so when we launched Op Sindoor, where the message was clear that it is for operation for counter-terrorism to eliminate the terror camps and centers which are there, but they did not take the message. They did not take the message that India seeks no territorial aggression. So, having then gone down on their knees during the 3 days of operations, they go to America, their DGMO comes speeding to our DGMO, and then the ceasefire being betrayed. Pakistan betrays its state of the nature of the state which it is, its DNA. And I think they have to really take a new course if they want to live together as a nation, because Pakistan now may be Pakistan for only a short while with what is happening. And strategic autonomy, yes, great, absolutely. Now what has happened that the Prime Minister He built up the country, built up the defense forces, the motivation of the forces are built up for this Operation Sindoor. It was at a very apex level. And it was seen how the tri-services functioned. He went planning for a multi-domain operation. It was not required because things just finished with our great work done by the Indian Air Force. And what is greater thing is that the shield of a nation on its national security is the air defense.
Yes.
And that has come out loud and absolutely great pride for India, the way our air defense has reacted and given so much confidence to the nation, to the military itself.
Absolutely.
So I would like to take forward that we have to, I will say, never believe Pakistan. Their DNA is such, they will speak anything, they will come to the table, but they will do another thing. So if there is no firing right now, no bullets to be exchanged, our non-kinetic measures should be totally active. Our air corridors should be protected. Our maritime lanes in the Arabian Sea should be dominated. And of course, our land borders, we have been alert. This time round, if he does anything around the LOC, the so-called LOC, which is gone now, in the Kashmir side, then the artillery which has been pounding them,
yes,
we should now come out extensively with the Pinaka rocket launchers, with even BrahMos. 2 strikes of BrahMos will reduce them further. They were reduced to rubble by the use of BrahMos just 2 days back. So, I mean, that sort of messaging has to go along. We can no longer, we have shed the defensive mentality,
So-
and it is now the offensive spirit. It has to be both in action through our military projection of power and also the mind of the people and the governance.
And I think listening to the Prime Minister actually gives you that sense that this is a country in command. No matter what the Western media, no matter what Pakistan might be wanting to tell you, Subina Sikri and all gentlemen, with your permission, just to get our viewers up to speed with what really are the important takeaways of what the Prime Minister has today said, because it's been a big day. So let's bring up details of at least these 10 points that all of you must know, because these are highlights of how you will see that entire push and that entire movement towards our fight against terror. The Prime Minister says ceasefire is only a pause, not the end. I think this is the unequivocal message that should go out today to the rogue state Pakistan, that any moment that you attempt a misadventure, we are there, we are responding. Let's bring up the second big takeaway as far as what the Prime Minister has said. This is a new normal for a new country, a new India, where he says that Operation Sindoor is going to be the way we will respond. Because interestingly, and you must know this, that earlier India has gone into the PoK, we've gone into Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, but this time we've gone into the heartland of the Punjab province in Pakistan, and that has rattled many there. Let's bring up the third important takeaway as far as the Prime Minister's address is concerned. He says we'll reply to terror on our own terms. So a clear message, not just to Pakistan, that has been begging for conversations and a lot of other things, but a lot of other people, a lot of Pak allies who wanted India to talk. They wanted us to dial down tensions, to sit on the negotiation table. So that is the Prime Minister's response to that. Let's bring up the fourth important takeaway as far as the story is concerned. He says we'll attack the roots of terror. Important distinction that he's also made between the state and the non-state actors. We will go down to eliminate the roots of terror is what Prime Minister says. The fifth important takeaway now is going to be on your screens, and he says we will not tolerate the nuclear blackmail. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a departure of sorts, because the Prime Minister and India for the very first time is saying this as it is, that no matter what, you could be a nuclear armed state, but India reserves the right to respond. We will not, actually give to any nuclear blackmail, something that India has decided to do this time around. Let's bring up our sixth important takeaway. The Prime Minister says, let's have a conversation. But like I said, only on PoK, only on terror. Nothing doing on Kashmir, because Kashmir belongs to India and it is not up for grabs. We are not talking about Kashmir. A message also to America that in a particular statement, remember, had indicated that perhaps Kashmir could be spoken of at a neutral venue. And this, again, is an issue only between India and Pakistan. This brings us to our seventh important takeaway. That's going to go up on your screens. The Prime Minister says blood cannot flow with water. The clear reference is to industry that has been put in, and no matter what, Pakistan could say, because I remember Shehbaz Sharif initially has said that this was an act of war. But the Prime Minister says that nothing doing, blood will not flow with water, period. Let's bring up our eighth important big takeaway on the entire story and the Prime Minister's address, and this follows. The new red line we have drawn, that trade and talks will also not go hand in hand. So all punitive measures that India has exercised so far will continue to remain unless and until Pakistan decides to root away terror. This brings us to our ninth takeaway again. Terror and trade, the Prime Minister again reiterating, will not go hand in hand. Like I said, there have been a lot of sanctions, and he's again reinforcing that we are not giving in to Pakistan. No matter what the world might want us to believe, that India has drawn its own lines and we are not going to go into any kind of trade yet with Pakistan because of terror. This brings us to our final 10th takeaway on the entire address by the Prime Minister. He says road to peace also goes through power. I think this is a very powerful statement telling you more of what is the difference when it comes to Pakistan that still wants to call itself a democracy, but you have the GHQ, Rawalpindi, the deep state taking all decision, versus an India that collectively says that we will respond to terror on our own terms. So these are just 10 important takeaways, but there is a lot more detail. As always, also on ndtv.com, you can pick up all these details. And I want to take this opportunity now to go back to our panel of guests, and I also want to thank them again for their patience. Meena Sikri, you want to respond to what you've heard so far, and what, according to you, is the biggest message that has been sent by the Prime Minister tonight?
I think the biggest message from our Prime Minister has been that not only is this the new normal, but even as of today, on the Operation Sindoor launched by the Indian Defence Forces, this is still in motion. This is, उन्होंने कहा कि स्थगित किया गया है. He said that we are keeping this on because A, we want to avenge the death of innocent tourists and the cruel manner in which they died, and B, why we did that on 7th of May by destroying, terrorist camps, infrastructure in Muridke, Bhavalpur and other places. But still, the Pakistan army escalated and started attacking, colleges and gurdwaras and temples and mosques in India. So on May 10th, we have given the decisive response. And in response to the plea from the DGMO of Pakistan, we have agreed to a ceasefire. But if the ceasefire does not hold, and if there is a violation, as has happened on the first 2 days, but yesterday it was, we understand, very quiet, so then, of course, it will be okay. But we retain the right to continue our attack. So I think, number one, it's very clear that the Indus Water Treaty being kept in abeyance is going to continue. There's going to be no change on that. Number two, if there are talks, they can only be bilateral talks. There's no question of any mediation. And these talks will only have 2 points. One is, one is on return of PoK, and the other is how Pakistan, or whether or when they're going to stop their support for terrorist groups.
Yes.
So terrorism and trade, terrorism and talks, these cannot go together. But if they stop the support for terrorist groups, there can be talks on the position on terrorism and so on. So I think that the very important statesman-like message showing Prime Minister's leadership, showing also that we have internal strength now. We've shown on May 10 with those attacks, but the support of the international community also is something that India has been able to achieve in a large measure. You must notice that in the UN Security Council resolution this time that was adopted after the killing of the innocent tourists, the word disputed has not been used in the case of Jammu and Kashmir. So this is a very important development in the UN Security Council. We know that Pakistan did its best to get in that word disputed, but it was not included. So I think the world must recognize that after the 5th of August 2019, when Article 373 was abrogated, there is no longer any locus standi for any country to discuss Jammu and Kashmir. The only point for discussion is the return of Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and that is something that we are prepared to talk at any time about. So I think this important message that in reality, the Security Council seems to have recognized this, which is a very, very significant success for India, because I know, having been worked in the permanent mission to the UN, that this is such an issue which Pakistan was always taking up. That this is an item on the UN agenda. We must take it up. We must take it up. We must. And now another point is that while all these decades, India was very reluctant to take up the issue of Jammu and Kashmir, the issue of terrorism in a big way to counter what Pakistan was doing. Now, again, in the new normal, we are going to take this up with every country. The issue of terrorism, the issue of Pakistan being a state sponsor of terror, putting Pakistan on the FATF blacklist, all these issues are going to be taken up consistently and strongly, and we're not going to be any more pussyfooting around when Pakistan continues its terrorist attacks on India.
Good points. And I was also wondering, how did that IMF loan also come about in the first place? I mean, shouldn't there be people and countries accountable, responsible, when you have India putting out such clear evidence in the public domain, not for the very first time? So I think Veena Sikri makes that fantastic point. Amitabh, I know you've been waiting. Just give me another few minutes because I want to get in Vice Admiral Anil Kumar Chawla for his thoughts. Sir, do you believe anything that the Prime Minister today has said? This clear departure, this escalation on India's own terms and conditions, will this yield any results? Can Pakistan ever mend its ways?
The jury is out, will be out on that. But let me say that this is a very strong message that the Prime Minister and India has sent. So I think if you look at the hiatus between the last major terrorist outrage in Pulwama and the current one, it's 6 years. Let's hope that, the Pakistanis learn their lesson and never repeat this again. But I think we cannot put it past them. And therefore, we have to be vigilant. And therefore, the Prime Minister has rightly said that we'll be watching and waiting. I also want to point out that in today's messaging, the Prime Minister was not only very emphatic and very firm, but he was also very smart in that he also mentioned that the roots of terrorism in Pakistan have also led to attacks. The 9/11 attacks are tied to Pakistan. The London tube bombing attacks are tied to Pakistan. The Hamas attacks in Israel are tied to Pakistan. There is concrete evidence of people having participated in all these attacks or being trained. And that's why he said this is the university. The university of terrorism lies here. And therefore, he sort of brought out to the notice of the international community, if they really needed to know this, that, look, this is not just India's war against terror. It is also, and he brought out, it's also Pakistan's war. He brought out that we are actually helping Pakistan because he said if Pakistan does not get off this tiger, it's very difficult to, once they have ridden the tiger of terrorism, to get off without being consumed. But if they don't do this, the tiger or the terrorism will consume the country itself. He pointed that out in his speech. So I think it was a very comprehensive view on that. As far as the nuclear blackmail is concerned, I think this is probably the most significant part. The nuclear threshold and the nuclear threat is not only practical, but it's a large mind game as well. And I think he has played the mind game here. We have already demonstrated, as brought out by Dr. Chelani earlier, we've already demonstrated that we have crossed that several times since both states became nuclear weapon states. But this time it has been pretty emphatic. Earlier it was restricted to PoK, to the J&K area, etc., etc. Now it has the sort of self-imposed bounds that we put have been lifted. And therefore, this also puts an onus on the armed forces on the type of weaponry, on the type of tactics, and the type of strategy that we will need to adapt, which we've already been adapting. After the Kargil war, this has already happened. But I think we will need to now further adapt to this. And I think the Prime Minister has pointed to this as well. And lastly, I think I would like to mention that when he says that India will now no longer differentiate between the government sponsoring terrorism and the masterminds of terrorism, I think this is now a very firm acknowledgement that the Pakistani deep state, which is, of course, the Pakistan army, but not only them, but the Pakistani politicians and the entire, elite of the country are now complicit with the terrorists. So there is no distinction. And I think this will have a lot of diplomatic, political and financial implications for Pakistan going into the future. So Absolutely. I think this is a very powerful speech. It is a very defining speech. And I think a lot of things and a lot of strategies and policies are going to flow out of this, which are going to make a huge difference. And I think Pakistan should learn its lesson. You started off with that question. Yes. I think listening to this, they should understand that the ground has moved. It is no longer the same as it was before. And so they need to change their entire behavior and approach towards India and terrorism.
Oh, yes, but if their actions are any indication, and I think all of you, Veena ma'am and all gentlemen will agree that this is a Pakistan that is never going to learn its lesson. There clearly has to be more pressure, not just from India, but I think from world across. And that is why there was so much outrage, Amitabh, when the IMF loan was also granted. And not to forget what we just heard Vice Admiral Chawla also saying, that there is no difference now between the state and the non-state actors. And you cannot have good and bad terrorists, like the language that Pakistan was using for the longest time. But Amitabh, as a politician, I mean, I appreciate the fact that there has been a full military force that has attacked Pakistan with all its might. But all this could have been incomplete without the political will. Now, talking of politician, the Narendra Modi, Amitabh, what is your assessment of how far we have come? How important is this moment in our fight against terror?
Clearly, in his tenure, we have come or covered a long distance. One would recall after the attack, the 26/11 attack, India did not pose a very strong response to Pakistan military response. And what we have seen in the last 10 years, Uri, Balakot, and now these attacks, Operation Sindoor, is that India has clearly crossed the line in a sense, and has clearly given a very clear intention that it will not tolerate any act of terror. It has also given, in a way, a clear message to also the Western world and sections of media that Pakistan is a global terrorist hub, because some of the countries and Western media have been dilly-dallying and have not taken a very firm stance. When he is applauding the made in India weapons which have been used to tackle the Pakistan strikes, he's also in a way giving a subtle message to Pakistan that they are relying on Chinese imports and supplies, which are no match against India's weaponry systems. So many messages in all, and this is clearly now he has laid out a clear policy, and he will be remembered for laying out a clear policy or template, which is likely to be followed in the future for, God forbid, any terrorist attack which happens in the future, akin to something similar to what Israel has when Hamas or Houthi responds to Israel, that if there is any terror attack on India in the future, India will hit the terror bases. And if Pakistan remains silent, like after Uri or Balakot, all is well and fine. But if it retaliates like it has this time, then the Indian armed forces will respond very strongly and will not hesitate to hit their military installations or air bases. So a template of sorts has been created, and the clear message that there is no difference between the perpetrators and the terrorists is also highlighted by the fact that we have hit around 23 targets, out of which 9 are terror bases, but I think 14 belong to military installations or air bases of Pakistan. So that's a clear message to Pakistan in that sense, and also a clear message to some of the people who were questioning whether it was correct to have this sort of a ceasefire at this moment when India clearly had the edge. So when he talks about that it is not an era of war, he's also perhaps sending a message or a signal that India at this point of time, at this cusp of its history, when it is going to become the third largest economy of the world, is not beneficial to be sucked up into a war with a rogue nation. The message has been given, and if there is any further action from Pakistan, a suitable message which was given, because India has bigger goals to achieve and we cannot be compared with Pakistan.
Yes, and I also believe that a lot of people today, not just Pakistan, could be stunned by the audacity of what India has wanted to do. Because like, we were generally discussing that apart from the PoK, apart from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, when you go into the Punjab province, when you go into the heartland of Pakistan, no one would have imagined that this is how far India could be willing to come, and they will come there. They will strike at the terror hotbeds, whether in Bahawalpur, whether in Mudrike. And the terror outfits of Jaish-e-Mohammed, of the Lashkar-e-Toiba, of the Hizbul Mujahideen. And that is why we've seen a Pakistan that actually went completely rattled. So, Veena and all gentlemen, just give me another few seconds. I want to play out the excerpt where the Prime Minister speaks about this tactic. Why we went deep inside into Pakistan, what did that entail, and why was this so important?
दुनिया ने देखा कि कैसे पाकिस्तान के ड्रोन्स, पाकिस्तान की मिसाइलें भारत के सामने तिनके की तरह बिखर गई। भारत के सशक्त एयर डिफेंस सिस्टम ने उन्हें आसमान में ही नष्ट कर दिया। पाकिस्तान की तैयारी सीमा पर वार की थी, लेकिन भारत ने पाकिस्तान के सीने पर वार कर दिया। भारत के ड्रोन्स, भारत की मिसाइलों ने सटीकता के साथ हमला किया। पाकिस्तानी वायुसेना के उन एयरबेस को नुकसान पहुंचाया, जिस पर पाकिस्तान को बहुत घमंड था। भारत ने पहले 3 दिनों में ही पाकिस्तान को इतना तबाह कर दिया जिसका उसे अंदाजा भी नहीं था। इसलिए भारत की आक्रामक कार्रवाई के बाद पाकिस्तान बचने के रास्ते खोजने लगा। पाकिस्तान दुनिया भर में तनाव कम करने के लिए गुहार लगा रहा था।
So that is the moment where the Prime Minister is not just speaking of the audacity of the attack and why India needed to escalate this, but also saying that this is Pakistan that has been running around the world to whatever little allies it has left, apart from the IMF loan, also wanting to dial down tensions. And it is a Pak DGMO that reached out to our DGMO and who said, let's have a ceasefire, let's have a discussion. And that is where the story stopped. But clearly over the last few hours, you've seen Pakistan not wanting to accept that position. We just have enough time to take second comments from all of our guests, and let's base this now on what is the road ahead, what more can be done, and how do you put Pakistan literally on the map? Brahmachalani, let's go with you first.
Not only did India strike military bases in Pakistani Punjab, it also struck military sites in Sindh, including the Sakar Air Base and an air defense system in the Karachi cantonment. So India sent a very clear message that it can strike at will. Also, the Prime Minister's speech today contained an implicit rebuke of Trump. Trump wants to mediate a Kashmir solution. In fact, Trump has equated the victim India with the perpetrator of Pakistan, saying they are both quote-unquote great nations. In other words, a terrorist state like Pakistan, in Trump's view, is a great nation. Now, in his rebuke, Modi, without naming Trump, says that the only negotiations India will have with Pakistan will focus on 2 issues: cross-border terrorism and the return of Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir to India. Prime Minister also said in his speech that in response to India's military reprisals, Pakistan began seeking de-escalation. But that leaves a key question unanswered. If in 3 days, India inflicted so much pain on Pakistan, why did it yield to US pressure and abruptly declare a ceasefire? This military campaign could have gone on for a few more days, maybe 3 or 5 days more, to inflict heavier blows on Pakistan, to leave Pakistan humiliated in the eyes of the Pakistani people, so that the Pakistani military generals could not claim victory as they're claiming now. We could have waited 3-4 more days, just when we had the military momentum, just when our armed forces had seized the upper hand, just then abruptly we declared a ceasefire.
I do know Brahmachalani has reiterated that point earlier too, and there are a lot of people who still believe that this was the moment. You know, and the entire country, the opposition, everyone believed that this is the moment to ensure that we never ever have another Pahalgaon. Major General SVP Singh, sir, what are your thoughts?
I will hit the nail on the head. A pause is a very dangerous thing when you're dealing with Pakistan. A pause is a very dangerous thing. We must be just ready. A nation which is having a twin dagger in its back, if it does anything now, in the next day or so, or a couple of days, we must be swift and rapid, prohibitive reaction from our side, kinetic. That is the way Pakistan can be kept down.
Okay, a very brief comment, but very curt. I think the gentleman has said that, you know, we need to be really on our toes. Veena Sikri, are your thoughts any different from the two gentlemen that you've just heard, or you believe that this was the right moment for a ceasefire?
Yeah, I beg to differ with the two gentlemen who've just spoken before me. I must say that we must remember that it is Prime Minister Modi who has been advising President Putin and all others that this is not the era of war. So I think in keeping with Prime Minister's own policy that it's not the era of war, but at the same time with our absolutely unequivocal policy of opposing terror and hitting back at terror and hitting back at any escalation or any aggression on our soil, it was the right thing that we did, because we made our points on the 7th of May with the attack on the terrorist infrastructure of the Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Taiba and others, and we made our point even more strongly on the 10th of May with the destruction of so much infrastructure of the Pakistan Air Force bases. So, but we are saying that we don't want war, but we want to tell you that if you hit at us, you're going to get a much worse response, which will bring you to your knees. I think Pakistan was brought to its knees, and that is why they rushed off to the US to seek intervention, as happened in 1999. You know, in Kargil, the same thing happened when it was Nawaz Sharif at that time rushed to Washington to meet Bill Clinton. And this time too, the DGMO and others rushed to the Americans, you know, falling at their feet and saying, oh, please save us, otherwise you're finished, etc., etc. Now, having done all this, we have invited this pause and telling the world and telling Pakistan, we're only going to talk to you about ending of terror, and we're only going to talk to you about return of Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. That's it. For the rest, we maintain our right. The Operation Sindoor has only been put on hold. It has not been called off. So we maintain our state of preparedness. We maintain our state readiness to hit back at you at any time. And I'm sure all our very specialized experts in the defense forces are continuing with their planning, are continuing with their putting together of all their skills and ability to resist any further, infractions from the Pakistan side. So we have not given up on anything, but we have shown that we are not interested in war. We are interested in protecting our own interests, our own people, and in our own assets, and we have the ability to do so. This is the important demonstration to the world that we have the ability, we have acquired the ability to do so. We will only strengthen this ability in the weeks and months to come, standing at all times ready to resist any form of aggression. And terrorism is an act of war. This is another very important message going out from our side to Pakistan and to the rest of the world.
Oh yes, terrorism is now going to be an act of war is something that the government again has put out very, very clearly. Vice Admiral Anil Kumar Chawla, what are your thoughts, sir? I mean, there could have been more action maybe against Pakistan. Are you a votary of that school of thought?
You know, I'm not one who second guesses policymakers, because we are not policymakers. So when you look at it from the outside, it's quite evident that this entire exercise was started by India, very clearly stating at each step that this was not meant to escalate into a war. I mean, it was given in writing. It was given verbally by every spokesperson. At every stage, India has reiterated. So the clear intention that was given was that, look, this is not going to, we don't want to escalate. And there was a reason for that, which we don't have time to go into. So I think, if war is a continuation of politics by other means, this was followed very clearly. The policy was laid down by the government. It was followed by the government. And I think actually when you look at it in hindsight now, what has happened, the policy, new policy, the Modi doctrine, as you've called it, and as it will be called, which has been laid down, I think that's a very solid foundation to now prosecute Pakistan in a more strategic manner. And I think the Indus Water Treaty and other levers of trade and the financial levers that are going to be put into place are going to be to Pakistan's extreme detriment. So I think this is a much more smarter way of achieving what the strategic goal that is, because the weapon systems and the armed forces always there as a hammer, as has been mentioned by the Prime Minister. Should Pakistan fall out of line again, and it could very well be used. But to answer your question, this was not meant to be that. It was very clearly stated. So it would have been surprising and against the government's policy if it had escalated. I think the Prime Minister and the government were very clear that, look, this is not meant to escalate. At every stage, it was mentioned in writing and in verbal and repeated by the spokesperson in every briefing. So it was quite clear. And I think now that this message has been sent and that the nuclear Rubicon has been clearly stated will not stand in the way of India prosecuting any further terrorist attacks, and a new line in the sand, as the Prime Minister says, has been drawn, I think it's a very good outcome. There will always be people. Pakistan has claimed victory even after 1971 war. So that is something that they will continue to do. That's for their internal audience, for their internal legitimacy. I don't think we should be bothered about that. I think the outcome is entirely positive and totally in our favor.
Okay, so you believe this was the right moment, and clearly it's up to the policymakers to decide where they believe that they can pause and where they believe that they need to push forward. Amitabh, with your permission, I just have another quick follow question with Beena Sikri, because this is something a lot of our viewers have also been asking ever since here on Newsnight. We've been covering the entire issue. Why don't we declare Pakistan a terror state? I mean, what is the process? Why is it so difficult, and why have we not done it so far?
Well, I think I agree with you on that, because I think that Pakistan is definitely a state sponsor of terror. And we have been talking about it in a big way, about Pakistan's support for the terrorist groups, encouraging them and using them against India, particularly in Jammu and Kashmir. I think that we need to get international support on this, because this is the important point. And this is why we need to take this into the international domain and get global support for declaring Pakistan as a state sponsor of terror. And this is a very consistent dialogue we must have. You have put together all the facts and figures, and I think now we have increasing amount of evidence, and this cannot be, there can be no let up on this. All these decades, it was Pakistan was going around the world talking about Jammu and Kashmir, saying how it belongs to them, and getting international support for their point of view. And India, except in the last 10 years, India has been very reluctant to enter this debate, because we've always said, ever since the Shidma agreement, it can only be done bilaterally. But Pakistan was breaking this with impunity, with complete impunity, telling everybody, their point of view. This state of affairs is not going to be there anymore. And we have quite signaled that we are going to take this to the global community and continue our fight. Even in the IMF, we abstained, which was the strongest kind of vote that we did when the IMF was deciding on giving Pakistan this $1 billion, because, IMF has been bailing them out again and again. But
Beena Sikri, I am baffled. If after what Pakistan has done, if after all the evidence that we have in the public domain, if we still need more support, I mean, this obviously cannot be the new normal. Amitabh, I know I'm asking you just to wait, but Brahmachalani, take about a minute, sir, to tell us more about what are your thoughts on this. Is it so difficult to declare Pakistan a terror state?
There are certain powers that have built up Pakistan as a military counterweight to India, including the United States.
Yes.
The US has a veto power in the IMF board, yet beginning with Biden administration, they helped Pakistan secure one bailout after another. Biden even modernized Pakistan's F-16 fleet, made it more lethal against India, helped Pakistan exit the FATF gray list, and now the Trump administration has helped facilitate another $2.4 billion bailout for Pakistan. The US turned a blind eye to Pakistan's acquisition of nuclear weapons because the US believed that Pak nukes could block India from gaining dominance in South Asia. Even today, Pakistan remains, quote unquote, a major non-NATO ally of the US.
Correct.
So not only does Pakistan have China as a close ally, the old establishment in Washington hasn't given up on Pakistan, and that's the reason why Trump and company are now trying to resurrect the Kashmir issue. So global community will not designate Pakistan as a sponsor of terrorism. It is for India to do it. Now, India has expelled the Pakistani air, army and naval attaches from Delhi.
Yes.
The Pakistan High Commission strength has come down to 30.
Yes.
That is twice as many as the number of personnel, diplomatic personnel in the Canadian High Commission in New Delhi. In other words, we are still not treating Pakistan in policy as a terrorist state. Coming back to the earlier discussion, the point that I was trying to make is this, that when Pakistan was begging for truce, why did we accept US mediation? That question has not been answered by anyone.
Okay, you say that question has still not been answered by anyone, but the jury is out there, Veena. I have completely run out of time, but I have to go to Amitabh quickly because we have to see how the story moves from here. Amitabh, we just know that the BJP has also announced a Tiranga Yatra, where the idea is to go to every nook and corner of the country and put out the message of the success of Operation Sindoor. Amitabh, how do you see the story moving politically?
So politically, clearly the opposition has demanded that there be a joint session of parliament. If not a joint session of parliament, I think since the BJP-led government had held an all-party meeting during the attacks and even before the attacks, trying to take into confidence all the political parties, I think an all-party meeting could happen in the next few days, wherein the government clears its position as to what sort of harm it has done to the Pakistan establishment and why did it go for a ceasefire, because these are strategic and confidential things which may not be discussed in a joint session of parliament. The BJP would of course try to take credit because see, today's war is not only fought on borders, it is also fought on social media. So clearly when we see that the public of Pakistan is celebrating and a loss, we have to come out and claim credit for the victory and show to the world. We have already, in a sense, in the DGMO operations, clearly before and after those slides, we have learned a lesson from Balakot in that sense. And that clearly shows the extent of damage we have made to Pakistan. So BJP would try to milk it politically. The opposition parties may not be able to oppose it. I think it is better not to oppose it in a sense.
Yes.
And the questions which they are asking, and Brahmaji is also asking as to why the ceasefire was adopted, under whose pressure, all these questions could be discussed in an all-party meeting to take all parties into confidence on the way forward.
All right, Veena Sikri and all gentlemen, I must thank you for this very, very fascinating conversation that we've had. And I hope our viewers have been able to understand at the end of it various layers within layers to this entire story. Thank you to all of you as we also make way for Newsnight's parting shot. What is very clear, ladies and gentlemen, that this is a new normal for a new India. No matter what you say, but this is the new red line. This deal, that is the ceasefire, is just a pause. It's not the end, something that the Prime Minister has said, and that is why every next move, the next move of Pakistan will be watched. Whatever Pakistan does today, we will be closely watching. Our forces are up in guard, and the talks, like the Prime Minister has said, will only and only be on terror, and PoK and Kashmir, unfortunately for Pakistan, is not on the table. Thank you so much for watching. We thank you for your time. Good night.
तू ही तो है जिसकी सच्चाई वाली क्लैरिटी की वजह से मैं आज यहाँ हूँ।
गोल्ड प्लस सिल्वॉक्सी मिरर्स, ऐसी क्लैरिटी कि आपको सिर्फ सच नजर आए, चाहे कितने भी साल बीत जाएं।
How often have you turned away from debates that descend into endless fights? We bring you a show where every question is answered, where every debate finds its resolution. where every story finds its conclusion, where opinions collide but facts prevail, where stories unfold with insights and trust. When the noise ends, the last word begins.
In the last 1 month, if you see, the share prices of Genzol Engineering has fallen more than 58%.
Why are the rating firms calling the debt payments as default?
We have two credible credit rating agencies on March 4th coming and downgrading the stock to D.
Statements are consistently being proven wrong, and transactions are being taken place which are different from what they were originally pictured to be.
The company claimed it would roll out 6,400 electric vehicles. But what it has rolled out is a shocking scam. Funds meant for the project were funneled allegedly back to the promoters, the Junkie brothers. What did the money buy? Not EVs, of course, but a lavish flat in Gurgaon's luxurious DLF Carmelias.
News is not just headlines, it is what impacts you. And news should never be mistaken for noise. What matters is the reality. Accurate, in-depth, and with the right perspective. For over 20 years, I have been a journalist, and never has clarity mattered more than now. At Newsnight, we go beyond the surface. We dissect the details, challenge the narratives, and bring you the unparalleled clarity you deserve in a world clouded by misinformation. We are bold, we are direct. Newsnight, for the news in your interest. Only on NDTV 24/7.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news, is here.
I've been reporting on all issues big and small from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of Maximum City is infectious. I'm bringing that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti, also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colors.
India's IT capital is always bustling, a city full of startups, stories and surprises. And I keep you ahead on all the Bengaluru buzz.
More news that matters.
Big exclusive. Tulsi Gabbard gunned down by Pakistan-backed cowards.
When you interact with people on ground, you're able to reflect their sentiments much better.
More debates that shake the system. More exclusives you won't find anywhere else. Not just another prime time. It's a prime time that's unmissable.
Welcome to this very special ground report from the line of control in Uri. That is Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, less than a kilometer behind me near the Indian Army's last post. We have permission to report from here, and we are reporting after the first day and night that has gone without any hostilities since tensions began between India and Pakistan 18 days ago. Over the next half hour, we're going to bring you the highlights of the Second Armed Forces briefing, talks between the two countries, and how much bigger India's military operation against Pakistani targets really is than we ever imagined. It is not without reason that the Indian Navy is called the Silent Service. For 18 days now since hostilities began, very little information has emerged of what the Indian Navy has been up to. At yesterday's briefing, we got the first official word of how the Indian Navy had caged in the entire Pakistan Navy to harbour or close to port, and that Karachi had been on target. Now we know even more from today's briefing. The INS Vikrant Carrier Battle Group, an indigenously built aircraft carrier and its constituent elements, including submarines, aircraft and warships, had confined the Pakistan Air Force and Pakistan military aircraft to the Makran coast of Balochistan, basically meaning that the Pakistan military was unable to perform or conduct any overseas operations because of the presence of the Indian Navy's INS Vikrant, its aircraft, its MiG-29Ks, and all the other elements that were part of it. Another example of how the Silent Service was keeping Pakistan pinned down. A very significant part of today's press briefing by the armed forces was devoted to India's integrated air defense system, considering that the country came under attack by swarm after swarm of hundreds of drones, loitering munitions, possibly even missiles from Pakistan. It's not surprising that the spotlight was put on India's air defense weapons and systems. Very interestingly, after first saying they did not want to talk about specifics of weaponry and otherwise, well, today they went ahead and named some of those weapon systems. And the good news is many of them are indigenous, meaning homegrown, designed and made here in India, which is a huge statement for Atmanirbharta as far as defense and weapons are concerned. The officers particularly mentioned the Akash surface-to-air missile and the Defense Research and Development Organization built anti-drone comprehensive integrated system, which they say did much of the heavy lifting in defeating swarm after swarm of Pakistani drone. There were many sophisticated systems as well, but they, we understand, performed more of a role of deterrence, keeping manned aircraft well within Pakistani airspace and not daring to enter Indian airspace. If it matters to you, if it matters to you, if it matters to you, it matters to India, it matters to India, and it matters to me, and it matters to me.
India Matters with Shivaru, only on NDTV 24/7.
How often have you turned away from debates that descend into endless fights? We bring you a show where every question is answered, where every debate finds its resolution, where every story finds its conclusion, where opinions collide but facts prevail, where stories unfold with insights and trust. When the noise ends, the last word begins.
In the last 1 month, if you see, the share prices of Jenzol Engineering has fallen more than 58%.
Why are the rating firms calling the debt payments as default?
We have two credible credit rating agencies on March 4th coming and downgrading the stock to D.
Statements are consistently being proven wrong, and transactions are being taken place which are different from what they were originally pictured to be.
The company claimed it would roll out 6,400 electric vehicles. But what it has rolled out is a shocking scam. Funds meant for the project were funneled allegedly back to the promoters, the Junkie brothers. What did the money buy? Not EVs, of course, but a lavish flat in Gurgaon's luxurious DLF Carmelias,
News is not just headlines, it is what impacts you. And news should never be mistaken for noise. What matters is the reality, accurate, in-depth, and with the right perspective. For over 20 years, I have been a journalist, and never has clarity mattered more than now. At Newsnight, we go beyond the surface. We dissect the details, challenge the narratives, and bring you the unparalleled clarity you deserve in a world clouded by misinformation. We are bold, we are direct. Newsnight, for the news in your interest. Only on NDTV 24/7.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister has put out a loud and an unequivocal message today, not just for Pakistan, but for the world. He says we will talk to Pakistan, but only on terror and on PoK, and Kashmir, he says, is definitely not on the table. We get you highlights of that big address and a lot more in just a moment. First up, the headlines. The Prime Minister is putting Pakistan on notice. He says Operation Sindoor is only put on hold. It is not over. And he also says that this is now India's policy on terror, and we took this war to the heart of Pakistan.
पाकिस्तान की तैयारी सीमा पर वार की थी, लेकिन भारत ने पाकिस्तान के सीने पर वार कर दिया.
The Prime Minister says we've beaten Pakistan that was begging the world for a ceasefire. We have destroyed Pak bases and their infrastructure. The Prime Minister also reiterating talks with Pakistan will happen only on terror and on PoK, reiterating that water and blood cannot flow together.
पाकिस्तान को अगर बचना है तो उसे अपने टेरर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का सफाया करना ही होगा.
The India-Pak DGMO have earlier held the second round of talks. The truce will continue. Both sides are committed to not firing a single shot. Troop production is also under consideration. And Virat Kohli has announced his retirement from Test cricket after a legendary 14-year career for India. He says he's walking away with a heart that is full of gratitude. The BCCI is making it official. The IPL matches to resume from the 17th of May, 17 matches to be played across 6 venues. So Operation Sindoor that smashed the terror infrastructure in Pakistan, remember, was not just an operation, but it was a change in doctrine, a new red line that you've seen India rewriting. It is our policy against terror. The Prime Minister earlier today has said in a televised address, his very first address since India has launched this entire attack at Pakistani terror facilities after Pakistan attacked our civilian facilities and also at our various military installations. Now remember, we have hit them in both Pakistan and in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The Operation Sindoor, he also says, has not ended. This is just a pause. He says our guards are up and any kind of misadventure by Pakistan is going to be responded to in kind, is the clear, emphatic word coming in from the Prime Minister, who's also reiterated that the senior officers of all the 3 armed forces have earlier reiterated much in terms of evidence also that we have against Pakistan, and continuing to say that India will be striking at the heart of terror decisively whenever our citizens are attacked.
भारत के ड्रोन्स ने हमला बोला तो आतंकी संगठनों की इमारतें नहीं, बल्कि उनका हौसला भी थर्रा गया. बहावलपुर और मुरिद के जैसे आतंकी ठिकाने एक प्रकार से ग्लोबल टेररिज्म की यूनिवर्सिटीज रही है। दुनिया में कहीं पर भी जो बड़े आतंकी हमले हुए हैं, चाहे 9/11 हो, चाहे लंदन ट्यूब बॉम्बिंग हो, या भारत में दशकों से जो बड़े बड़े आतंकी हमले हुए हैं, उन सब के तार कहीं ना कहीं आतंक के इन्हीं ठिकानों से जुड़ते रहे हैं। आतंकियों ने हमारी बहनों का सिंदूर उजाड़ा था, इसलिए भारत ने आतंक के ये हेडक्वार्टर्स उजाड़ दिए। दुनिया ने देखा कि कैसे पाकिस्तान के ड्रोन्स, पाकिस्तान की मिसाइलें भारत के सामने तिनके की तरह बिखर गई। भारत के सशक्त एयर डिफेंस सिस्टम ने उन्हें आसमान में ही नष्ट कर दिया। पाकिस्तान की तैयारी सीमा पर वार की थी, लेकिन भारत ने पाकिस्तान के सीने पर वार कर दिया। भारत के ड्रोन्स, भारत की मिसाइलों ने सटीकता के साथ हमला किया। पाकिस्तानी वायुसेना के उन एयरबेस को नुकसान पहुंचाया, जिस पर पाकिस्तान को बहुत घमंड था। भारत ने पहले 3 दिनों में ही पाकिस्तान को इतना तबाह कर दिया जिसका उसे अंदाजा भी नहीं था। इसलिए भारत की आक्रामक कार्रवाई के बाद पाकिस्तान बचने के रास्ते खोजने लगा। पाकिस्तान दुनिया भर में तनाव कम करने के लिए गुहार लगा रहा था। ऑपरेशन सिंदूर ने आतंक के खिलाफ लड़ाई में एक नई लकीर खींच दी है। एक नया पैमाना, न्यू नॉर्मल तय कर दिया है। पहला, भारत पर आतंकी हमला हुआ तो मुंह तोड़ जवाब दिया जाएगा। हम अपने तरीके से, अपनी शर्तों पर जवाब देकर रहेंगे। हर उस जगह जाकर कठोर कार्रवाई करेंगे जहां से आतंक की जड़ें निकलती हैं। दूसरा, कोई भी न्यूक्लियर ब्लैकमेल भारत नहीं सहेगा। न्यूक्लियर ब्लैकमेल की आड़ में पनप रहे आतंकी ठिकानों पर भारत सटीक और निर्णायक प्रहार करेगा। तीसरा, हम आतंक की सरपरस्त सरकार और आतंक के आकाओं को अलग अलग नहीं देखेंगे। पाकिस्तानी फौज, पाकिस्तान की सरकार जिस तरह आतंकवाद को खाद पानी दे रहे हैं, वो एक दिन पाकिस्तान को ही समाप्त कर देगा। पाकिस्तान को अगर बचना है तो उसे अपने टेरर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का सफाया करना ही होगा। इसके अलावा शांति का कोई रास्ता नहीं है। भारत का मत एकदम स्पष्ट है। टेरर और टॉक एक साथ नहीं हो सकते। टेरर और ट्रेड एक साथ नहीं चल सकते और पानी और खून भी एक साथ नहीं बह सकता। मैं आज विश्व समुदाय को भी कहूंगा, हमारी घोषित नीति रही है, अगर पाकिस्तान से बात होगी तो टेररिज्म पर ही होगी। अगर पाकिस्तान से बात होगी तो पाक ऑक्युपाइड कश्मीर पीओके उस पर ही होगी। ऑपरेशन सिंदूर के दौरान दुनिया ने पाकिस्तान का वो घिनौना सच फिर देखा है, जब मारे गए आतंकियों को विदाई देने पाकिस्तानी सेना के बड़े बड़े अफसर उमड़ पड़े। स्टेट स्पॉन्सर्ड टेररिज्म का ये बहुत बड़ा सबूत है। हम भारत और अपने नागरिकों को किसी भी खतरे से बचाने के लिए लगातार निर्णायक कदम उठाते रहेंगे। साथियों, युद्ध के मैदान पर हमने हर बार पाकिस्तान को धूल चटाई है और इस बार ऑपरेशन सिंदूर ने नया आयाम जोड़ा है। हमने रेगिस्तानों और पहाड़ों में अपनी क्षमता का शानदार प्रदर्शन किया और साथ ही न्यू एज वॉरफेयर में भी अपनी श्रेष्ठता सिद्ध की। पाकिस्तान की तरफ से जब ये कहा गया कि उसकी ओर से आगे कोई आतंकी गतिविधि और सैन्य दुस्साहस नहीं दिखाया जाएगा, तो भारत ने भी उस पर विचार किया। और मैं फिर दोहरा रहा हूं, हमने पाकिस्तान के आतंकी और सैन्य ठिकानों पर अपनी जवाबी कार्रवाई को अभी सिर्फ स्थगित किया है। आने वाले दिनों में हम पाकिस्तान के हर कदम को इस कसौटी पर मापेंगे कि वो क्या रवैया अपनाता है।
So what is the significance of what the Prime Minister has said, and what is the larger message that he's given to both Pak and the world around? This is our colleague Maria breaking that down.
Operation Sindoor is ongoing and India will not shy away from taking military action against Pakistan in future, is the big message coming in from Prime Minister Modi's address to the nation. As he said very clearly that terror and talks cannot go together, terror and trade cannot go together, and water and blood cannot go together. One of the most defining moment of India's strategic positioning, and also in the perhaps the inflection point or in the military doctrine of India, when the Prime Minister clearly and strategically called out Pakistan, said that it has become, it has used the entire terror apparatus and spoke about Bahawalpur and Muridke as universities of terror. He also did not rule out any further action against Pakistan if it were to sponsor terror against India in future. Prime Minister Modi also going on to say that this is the new normal, that India has set and defined that new red line in its war against terrorism, that in case if Pakistan were to venture out in future, it should be prepared for another round of Operation Sindoor, in which India will go ahead and destroy its terror hubs right inside Pakistan. And I think one of the points that was being debated a lot because of there was a lot of chatter on social media, misinformation campaign being carried out by the neighbor and also by the Western media, Prime Minister Modi saying clearly that it was Pakistan which came to India begging for peace, and it was Pakistan which was bearing the brunt of India's onslaught and forced them, their DGMO, to reach out to their counterparts in India. So I think the address to the nation timed after the ceasefire and also perhaps waited clearly, the Indian establishment and the Prime Minister's office waiting clearly to see as to how the ceasefire goes. There has been a relative night of peace, and that is the reason why Prime Minister addressing the nation and talking about the success of Operation Sindoor and how he sees India and Pakistan will go from here onwards, saying clearly that if there will be ever any talks with Pakistan, it will be on terror and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir.
Let's tell you more about an important briefing that was held earlier. These were talks also between the DGMOs that were held earlier today, and issues related to continuing the commitment that both sides must not fire a single shot or initiate any aggressive and inimical action against each other has largely been discussed. It was also agreed that both sides consider immediate measures to ensure troop reduction from the borders and also from the forward areas. Shiv is telling us more.
The two Director Generals of Military Operations, Lieutenant General Rajiv Ghai of India and Major General Kashif Abdullah of Pakistan, did speak finally today. It was a hotline conversation that was scheduled for 12, but it got delayed for various reasons, official and procedural. We're told nothing else. And the two officers did speak. It was a brief conversation. The Indian Army has indicated that they both agreed on next steps. Also, that there was a firm commitment from Pakistan's side that was required by India, that there would be no hostility, no shots fired, nothing inimical to the understanding that had been reached following Operation Sindoor, something that Pakistan had wanted, this ceasefire. Very importantly, however, is that the two sides have also ensured, and India has insisted, that both sides initiate measures to ensure a reduction in the forward deployment of troops and military hardware in the border areas, the line of control and elsewhere, as a possible confidence-building measure. Because remember, both countries are in a war-like deployment right now, and perhaps the next phase of Operation Sindoor could have been, an outbreak of total war. So to reduce those forces, which are, a big threat to each other at this point of time, to build some kind of confidence and cool down temperatures in the frontier areas, is a measure that both sides have committed to ensuring as quickly as possible.
Also, let's tell you more about how the Indian Armed Forces earlier have exposed Pakistan yet again, and this was also their intent to side with terrorists, is what India says. In its press briefing, the Indian Armed Forces have reiterated that Operation Sindoor targeted only and only the terror camps in Pakistan and in PoJK, and that the Pakistan military itself is responsible for any loss that they have incurred and that they claim. Now, Air Marshal A.K. Bhatt also addressed the DGMO conference. He made it very clear that India's fight is against terror, not against the Pak military, not against civilian, and that's why we only struck terror camps on May the 7th. But it is Pakistan's military that sided with terrorists, and then they decided to make this their own fight.
As you can see, we have targeted the length and breadth of the adversary. I'm sure most of you would have already seen the effect of these strikes on ground, courtesy the large number of videos and photographs being circulated in the media. A few representative examples from the open source are now being shown to you on the screen. In fact, two of them. This is the strike on the Noor Khan Air Base. And you can see the effect. I'm sure most of you have seen the video. I have also picked it up from your sources only. And this is the aftermath of our strike at Raimyar Khan Air Base. You can see the massive crater that it has left on its runway. And you can see the pinpoint accuracy of our weapons. So with that, giving you an overview of how our air defense systems have thwarted the enemy drones, their fighter aircraft, their missiles, and resulted in minimal losses on our side.
आतंकियों पर हमारे सटीक हमले लाइन ऑफ कंट्रोल और इंटरनेशनल बाउंड्री को पार करे बिना किए गए थे। हमें पूरा अंदेशा था कि पाकिस्तान का वार भी बॉर्डर के उस पार से ही होगा। इसलिए हमने अपनी एयर डिफेंस की पूरी तैयारी पहले से ही कर ली थी। हमारी इन्वेंट्री में शामिल काउंटर मैन्ड एरियल सिस्टम्स, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक वॉरफेयर के साधन और एयर डिफेंस वेपन्स का इंडियन एयरफोर्स के इसी प्रकार के सिस्टम्स के साथ एक अनोखा मिश्रण किया गया। इसलिए आपने देखा कि जब जब पाकिस्तान एयरफोर्स ने हमारे एयरफील्ड्स और लॉजिस्टिक इंस्टॉलेशंस में 9 और 10 मई की रात को लगातार हमले किए, वो इस मजबूत एयर डिफेंस ग्रिड के सामने विफल हो गए। तो कोई मौका नहीं था कि पाकिस्तान एयरफोर्स ये मल्टी टियर डिफेंस को पार करके पीछे हमारी एयरफील्ड्स या लॉजिस्टिक इंस्टॉलेशंस को टारगेट कर पाए।
Let's also move on to get you more details. So what sources actually tell us on the India-US talks. Now, what we can confirm to you is that there has been no reference to trade in those conversations. The US Vice President also spoke to the Prime Minister, is again what source-based information is coming forward. And these were also talks, remember, during India's Operation Sindoor. Away to the world of sports, and this is about the BCCI that now has announced the resumption of the IPL 2025. There are going to be a total of 17 matches played across 6 venues starting May the 17th, culminating in the finals that take place on June the 3rd. The revised schedule includes 2 double-headers which will be played on 2 Sundays. Now, there are also more details of the playoffs. Let's also get in our colleague Rika, who's breaking that big story for us. Rika, tell our viewers more about the schedule and what happens.
Due to the tension at the border, and now there are 17 more matches left to be played, which is why the tournament is resuming over the weekend. It's going to start on the 17th of May, and it's now going to stretch till the 3rd of June. Earlier, it was to happen till the 26th of May, but now due to the break of 1 week and resumption once again, it's been stretched to 1 more week. The first qualifier will be played on 29th of May, second on 30th. The eliminator is on the 30th. In fact, the second qualifier on 1st June, culminating on June 3rd, which is a weekday. It's a Tuesday, but fans will have to keep up with the fact that the tournament is getting extended. The complexity really lies in the foreign players returning, because most of them have returned home due to the tension that was happening between India and Pakistan. BCCI didn't hold them back after the match at Dharamshala got postponed. While BCCI wants all the foreign players to come back, but in case some of them do not want to come due to the political situation, then the board will have to keep up with their request of not coming back. Overall, it seems that it will have a resumption and will be played in the way it was expected to be. There are some new venues that has been marked in the new schedule, though these were venues where matches were played originally. They're new because the tournament schedule now has been rejigged to give it a different look.
All right, Rika there getting us more details of that big story. We'll continue to track that as we also head into a quick break on the other side. Lots more coming up.
I've been reporting on all issues big and small from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of maximum city is infectious. I'm bringing that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti, also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colours.
India's IT capital is always bustling, a city full of startups, stories and surprises. And I keep you ahead on all the Bengaluru buzz.
More news that matters.
Big exclusive. Tulsi Gabbard gunned down by Pakistan-backed cowards.
When you interact with people on ground, you're able to reflect their sentiments much better.
More debates that shake the system. More exclusives you won't find anywhere else. Not just another prime time. It's a prime time that's unmissable.
If it matters to you, if it matters to you, if it matters to you, it matters to India. It matters to India. It matters to India. And it matters to me. And it matters to me.
Welcome back. Now, US and China have agreed to temporarily lower the tariffs on each other's goods, and this is a move that is all set to cool a lot of these trade tensions and give the world's two largest economies at least 3 more months to resolve their differences. Now, what President Donald Trump earlier has said is that China, quote unquote, has agreed to open up to American businesses, but offered few details about this development and what really have been the other conversations around. Yet he says, and again I quote him, that maybe the most important thing to come out of the high-level trade talks in Geneva, Switzerland over the weekend was this resolution. Now, the combined 145% is what the US levels on most Chinese imports is going to be reduced to a 30%, including the rate that is tied to fentanyl by May the 14th, while the 125% Chinese duties on the US goods now will be dropping to a 10%.
We opened up China. China agreed to open itself up to American business to go in. And it would have been a great thing, I think, for China. They would be able to see things that they haven't seen. They would be able to buy products that they have never been able to buy. Would have been great for American business. I think it would have brought unity between China, better unity between China and the United States. And the bottom line is that they canceled it the last day. We were all set to sign it, and then I went a little bit angry. I got a little angry. I said they canceled the deal. The deal was done. It was all ready to be signed, and people went over, they came back to me, sir, they don't want to sign.
With this, it's time for us to head into another quick break. On the other side, more news and updates.
If it matters to you, if it matters to you, if it matters to you, it matters to India. It matters to India. And it matters to me. And it matters to me.
India Matters with Shivaru. Only on NDTV 24/7.
How often have you turned away from debates that descend into endless fights? We bring you a show where every question is answered, where every debate finds its resolution, where every story finds its conclusion, where opinions collide but facts prevail, where stories unfold with insights and trust. When the noise ends, the last word begins.
To me personally, but there was a sense that the selectors were trying to convince him to stay, particularly for the England tour. He's had I think, Indian Test cricket has taken a bit of a beating in its last two series. We lost to New Zealand at home.
And publish with the audio.
And we lost to Australia, and both Kohli and Rohit Sharma, who were the sort of the pillars of their team, they didn't have the kind of results and the scores and the performances that they wanted. So this was coming, but maybe I think it was thought that one between either Rohit or Virat would go to England. It was assumed to be Virat, and he's decided that no, he wants to call it a day, and there's no more of this. And the thing about 10,000 runs, 10,000 test runs, what you say is true, but he's still up there amongst the the top 4 Indian Test batsmen in history.
I'm also actually joined at this hour by Atul Vasan, former India cricketer. Atul, we were talking a little while earlier about Virat Kohli leaving a big hole in Test cricket. Tell us a little bit about, the impact it is going to have on the cricket verse, on the Test verse, so to say, now.
Yeah, I think they're the last of the the breed who actually brought back Test cricket into relevance. Because you will never get to see players like this. Who are so proficient in all the formats and literally geniuses. And I think lost Indian team, yes, because once somebody goes, it's not the runs he was getting in the last 3 years. It was the presence of the mentorship that he was there. He gives that assurance, and I think that was much needed. But the whole world has lost a cash cow. People come and throng to the stadiums to watch him play, and he's like a magnet. Because he brings this kind of passion, and he's got so many people to join. To watch cricket all over the world, not just India. And I think his persona also just adds to the picture because he just saw the runs. And I think even if he would have got 10,000 runs, I mean, he wouldn't have become a better player. And he is the last guy to actually play for these numbers, because a lot of people judge. But when you compare all the formats and, the low-hanging fruit, the T20s, and then you see the kind of cricket is dished out, I don't think so any cricketers who are big stars in the shorter format are willing to go the hard grind which needs to go and where Tendulkar and Virat have reached.
I'm also joined by former India cricketer Dilip Doshi, who lives in the UK. Dilip, the next tour that India is looking forward to is in the UK. How is the British press now reacting to this sudden announcement by Virat Kohli?
First of all, I thank you for inviting me. And just a small correction. I used to live in the UK. I'm just visiting. I live in Mumbai in India.
Okay.
That's one. And secondly, more importantly, when I learned this morning that Virat has retired from Test cricket, it made me very sad from the point of view that he is one of the truly great players that I've ever seen. And I would pay actually money to go and see him. And I think he has brought so much stability to Indian Test cricket team that the others around him have rallied and started realizing that Test cricket is the proper form of cricket. Virat always, if you look at his career, he has always led from the front. Irrespective of whether he was a captain or not, he has an inherent leadership quality of taking the burden on his shoulder. Even if he hasn't scored runs, he would be encouraging the bowlers, running around the field like the youngest player in the team. So I think his enthusiasm and his love for the game would have rubbed off on many, many youngsters who have played with him. And let us hope that his being with a lot of them have inspired many other youngsters to reach higher levels. As Atul was saying that after Sachin, if there is one cricketer that people flock to see, it's Virat. And this is across the world. And I think I don't like to compare people, but Virat has won many games on his own and batting second many times. His quality of his batsmanship and chasing runs has been phenomenal. So I just feel that Test cricket is deprived of a great spectacle. But you also understand that Virat has done enough and he is left when he is at his peak.
Okay, on that note, let me go over to a fan of Indian cricket, Test cricket, Rishi Chhabra. Rishi, now that Virat Kohli leaves the stage, who is that one man you are going to flock to the stadium for?
Rika, very difficult question because, honestly, the kind of aura that Virat Kohli had created in this Indian cricket team, it's going to be unmatched when it comes to the batters. But, credit to him, he's taken a call on his retirement at his peak. We all saw the kind of, performance that he had in Australia. He wasn't scoring runs. So definitely that was something playing on his mind. But if you talk about, the current players, I think there's just one player who can match the aura of Virat Kohli, Jasprit Bumrah. So, there's a lot to look into the future. I'm sure there will be someone who will live up to the expectations of the fan and the, spectators. But it's going to be very difficult to fill Virat Kohli's shoes. It's going to be next to impossible.
Right. Let's quickly listen into Mr. Rajiv Shukla, who has also reacted on Virat Kohli's announcement of retiring from Test cricket.
I think his contribution to Indian cricket, to the world cricket,
in test format has been par excellence. Superb. His performance has been superb. So salute to his performance, and we will miss him in test cricket, but it's purely his personal decision. Because besides, policy is very clear. We don't pressurize or ask any player to take retirement or not to take retirement. It's purely up to the player to decide. So I think he has taken a personal decision, and we all should respect that personal decision.
Sharda, the way Virat Kohli decided to walk away, there was no century, no celebration, no guard of honor, just an Instagram post to his 271 million followers. How would you read into that?
I think fans will be upset that there is no farewell. I think this is a new age of social media communication with the fans of how many ever hundreds of millions he has. And that's the way he's chosen to do it. It would have been nice had there been some kind of match where you knew this was going to be the last sort of time that you see a cricketer like him playing test cricket for India. But this is also a reflection of the generation at which these players are operating in. They said, look, this is what we want to do. We want to play one-day cricket. We want to play a white ball cricket more. And that's the choice we're going to make. And in a way, both Rohit and who just quit about 5 days ago, and Virat have sort of followed in the footsteps of MS Dhoni, who also sent off his retirements in these through social media posts and things of that, and sudden announcements. He's still playing 2020 cricket. So you'll see them around. You won't see them in India whites, and I think Kohli will be missed particularly in that. More than, I mean, that's just in my head. I think he'll be missed in that format quite significantly.
Atul, let me go over to you. These are not the days when any cricketer anymore needs a benefit match. So a final match, a benefit match will not be played. But will BCCI for its own fans want Virat Kohli to play in India one last time?
No, I think we'll see him play cricket in some form, but that is these old traditions actually just fade away, and Sharda is right. Actually, it's the day and age we live in, and they are not big fans of tokenism, symbolism. So I think what he has done, he felt it right. Yes, if he could have given a roadmap that okay, I'll play, this is my last series. That time also is gone because. Players live day to day, and I think he's realized that he's got 2 kids. He is taking too much of bandwidth because test cricket is hard. It's just not the time you spend playing a match. It's before and after that, and then that grind actually is something which I don't see any of the other players, the big stars of shorter formats, going for. And I think that's why I feel that who's going to get these fans back to test cricket? We need players like him, and that is why world cricket is poorer. In revenue-wise also, I think monetary-wise, we lose a lot of moolah because, he brings people, and I think eyeballs will be less. So it's a loss all around. But he is beyond the place where he needs a farewell match, and we'll see him play in other formats. He is probably going to aim for the Olympics. That's where he's heading to.
Right. In fact, I was with him during one of the discussions when he was asked whether he would like to come back for the Olympics. He didn't say very clearly whether 2028 is one last time when we would see him in the T20 format or not. Of course, he's retired from the T20 format, but in some ways, he did express his keenness on coming back for that one last match if India reaches the final of the Olympic Games. Going over to Mr. Doshi, what would you really say has been Virat Kohli's biggest legacy in Test cricket?
Virat has always played to win. And this is what I admire most in any sportsman. But, he didn't mind losing if he was trying to win. As you can remember, some series back in Australia, Australia set up almost impossible tasks, but we got very close to it, and Virat fought from the front. So the greatest asset that Virat had was a self-belief in himself, willingness to win at any cost meaning sporting manner. And of course, he raised the standards of people around him. And as I said, that he played for a good result. And this is the most sporting behavior from a great cricketer. And I remember that there were times when people would be quite happy to close the shutters and have the game as a draw. and not Virat. And this is one of the things I admire the most. And I hope that there will be some younger players who will take the cue from him and follow in the same vein.
Let's also talk about Virat Kohli's contribution in grooming the fast bowlers. Gautam, would you say that, you know, his foresight in grooming the fast bowlers to take 20 wickets is what also gave India that, that aura in Test cricket which they were missing before?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that pace battery comprising of Bumrah, Shami, Ishant, and Umesh to some extent, and the fitness culture. I mean, when we are discussing about Virat's legacy here, the manic, almost the manic obsession for fitness. I mean, these two things had also been two of the biggest, part of his legacy in the way he brought about or he played his cricket. Absolutely.
Sharda, while he also revolutionized the culture of fitness in the Indian dressing room, he's also been criticized for that, for pushing other cricketers to follow what he is doing.
Rika, every captain has their own personality, which they bring into how they, how they run the dressing room. And following Dhoni, who was much more sort of quieter, he was, Virat was the absolute opposite of it. And particularly in Test cricket, as everyone is pointing out, he made a real push to try and make sure that India succeeded and was successful overseas. We'd had these two very bad series under Dhoni, 4-0, 4-0. So Virat tried to turn that around, and but captains just bring that to a particular to a dressing room. You can't have a cookie cutter sort of a type that follows everything, and it's almost like teams sometimes get the captains that time seems to require. So after Kohli's time, you had Rohit, who had a different way of working with players, working with the team. Captains have something like a 4 to 5 year shelf life, and I think that's about the best amount of time that you get when people then start sort of pointing fingers and saying things. It's just his personality, and he wanted to be that way. And he wanted everyone to be super fit and push and be intense and everything. It's what makes Virat Kohli who he is, and which is why he was so successful in his own career.
Atul, if we are to talk about Virat Kohli's regrets when it comes to Test cricket, should we say the series in England, which we almost won, but we couldn't close it out because of COVID? When India eventually went back, he wasn't the captain anymore, or the fact that he couldn't win a World Test Championship medal?
I don't think so, because if you have not been able to do something, probably 300 runs in Test cricket and all that, you can just, but I think this is just wishful thinking, because I don't think he looks back at the series where he could have won or didn't win. Actually, the loss against New Zealand in India is probably what must be actually bothering him the most, because the way the whole team played. And but when you have done so much, been there, done it, got the T-shirt, you actually look at the good times. You don't actually now cherry pick what could have happened. And he's not the kind of player or the guy to actually just dwell over something which has gone past. He wants to live his next phase of life is starting. He wants to enjoy the family life. He's superbly fit, and I'm sure he's going to find a lot of things to occupy himself.
Mr. Doshi, you belong to a generation of cricketers when Test cricket particularly, was termed as a gentleman's game. Now, Virat evolved from being a brash teenager, a brash cricketer, to King Kohli. How do you look at his personal transformation?
Well, Virat started very young, almost as a teenager or soon past it. So there is certain exuberance in a young person and the willingness to win. Now, you have to look at different times. In our times, a lot of cricketers and India as a country did not have the self-confidence that the young India has had in the last 30, 35 years. And so whatever Virat represented the current young modern India. And he wanted to win, and he wore his heart on the sleeves, as they say. And I think as he grew up and he controlled his emotions more. But I would say that Virat's greatest asset was that despite his personal failure in a game, his enthusiasm to win and to encourage the fellow team members was infectious. I think that is a great asset in a team man. Everybody knows about Virat Kohli's fitness, his greatness as a player, his willingness to fight and, lead from the front. But these things, when you are down yourself as a great player and questions are being asked in public and by the press, he didn't allow that to really interfere with his thinking. And he was single-minded in his approach for the team and the Indian cricket. So this is where I would say hats off to him.
And I think his wife, Anushka Sharma, beautifully put out a post saying it was not just those wins, there were tears too, which the world wouldn't have seen, and she has, and there were moments of defeat, not just a victory, that together they have experienced, and the lows. It was not just the highs, but the lows. Rishi, coming to you, there are a lot of talks about either Shubman Gill or Rishabh Pant taking over as the next Test captain. What is that one trait of Virat Kohli that you would like for the next captains to imbibe?
Rika, it has to be the intent. I mean, we've seen the kind of intent that Virat Kohli brought into the team, be it while he was batting, while he was, in the field trying to pull up the entire team. So I think that intent and, obviously that fitness level as well. So these two things that, would be very, as fans, we would be keen to see in the next upcoming captain. But as we've all seen, I think chances are that Shubman Gill will lead the team in the future. So really hoping that he can live up to the expectations and do well for the team.
Gautam, coming back to you, while Virat Kohli has had many partnerships, would you say his partnership with Ravi Shastri was what really, transformed India's fortunes in Test cricket?
Yes, I mean, if you look at that period, he took over at 2014, and then there was a bit of a, like a transition when Anil Kumble came in. But then again, subsequently from 16 to say about 19, this is the time during which coincided with the golden phase of batsmanship. Say sometime around 16 to 2018, he had hardly put a foot wrong. In fact, I was looking at some of his figures. Those 3 years, he had scored over 3,600 runs daily. Right. And that was the time. Yes, I mean, they couldn't, win a ICC championship title, that's fine. Mm-hmm. But then again, it was the most productive time when they fed off each other. Their philosophy was somewhat similar.
Right.
Yeah, their philosophy was somewhat similar, and it was definitely a productive time.
Yeah, before, I wrap up the show, I'll have to ask all four of you your favorite Virat moments in Test cricket. And I'll start with Atul. Your favorite Virat moment in Test cricket?
Well, I think what defined him and what actually, started him off and showed people that he's not your run-of-the-mill, he's different, is when he showed the finger in Australia. That's for me.
Okay. Mr. Doshi, your favorite moment, Virat moment in Test cricket?
I find the win in Australia a few years back, when he was willing to chase runs and Pujara and him fashioned the victory, that was possibly a pinnacle in his career, because not many teams have won in Australia.
Mm-hmm. Gautam, yours?
Mine, when he was young and he just started, there were doubters about his potential as a Test batter. 2013, it was wondrous. I think it was 113 and it was some 90 odd against an attack which still had Dale Steyn. I mean, there was a guy who showed the spunk. And this was if there's one guy, a picture of one guy who enjoyed pace and bounce on the wicket, challenging conditions, he showed that he had it in him and he had arrived.
Rishi, what would be yours?
It has to be the first series win down under, because the kind of, situation that we were in, COVID, and then a lot of players getting injured, and then the reserve players coming in. So definitely that has to be, one series that Virat will always be remembered for in Test cricket.
I have to tell you my favorite Virat Kohli moment in Test cricket. It was the win in Joburg after India was down and out 2018-2019 series. The way India came back under Virat Kohli, and it was his phenomenal captaincy that helped India come back. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us on the show. And that is not all. Virat Kohli is being talked about in all circles. Virat Kohli was even being discussed by the DGM today earlier in the day during the press conference, and he spoke about not just his contribution but citing an example how today, in today's world, in changing times, how pertinent this gentleman, this legend of the cricket is, as he signs off. Listen into this soundbite.
आज शायद क्रिकेट की बात भी करनी चाहिए, क्योंकि मैं देख रहा था कि विराट कोहली ने टेस्ट क्रिकेट से रिटायरमेंट ले ली. कई भारतीयों की तरह वो मेरे भी फेवरेट क्रिकेटर हैं.
Gorgeous cover drive to the boundary for 4.
That's a proper Virat Kohli special. Up there, cover driving, extension of the elbow. Beautiful to watch. What a shot.
Off his toes, there are few better sides in the game than Kohli hitting that ball.
That is a glorious, exquisite drive from Kohli.
Safe pair of hands for Virat Kohli.
You could keep watching this day in and day out, still you won't get bored.
Oh, that's a super shot. Exquisite. Nicely played.
Full ball on the leg stump, forget it. Goes to the boundary in a flash.
Those are the kind of shots that went off Kohli's bat when he was at his best.
News is not just headlines, it is what impacts you. And news should never be mistaken for noise. What matters is the reality, accurate, in-depth, and with the right perspective. For over 20 years, I have been a journalist, and never has clarity mattered more than now. At Newsnight, we go beyond the surface. We dissect the details, challenge the narratives, and bring you the unparalleled clarity you deserve in a world.
These were the terror targets, first up, that India hit out at. Bahawalpur, way west of the Punjab and Rajasthan frontier. It was a very deep strike. The Jaish-e-Mohammed headquarters. Muridke, the headquarters of the Lashkar-e-Toiba. Several camps further north. These are shallow. These are just across the line of control, but these were all struck by India. All right. Now, what happened afterwards is what we know about, is the military strike. So let's bring out the military strikes which India conducted on Pakistan when they decided to come in. And I just like